Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how elements within Reform UK are splitting over their links with Tommy Robinson's supporters after Richard Tice made it clear that the party wants nothing to do with any of Robinson's supporters. Ben Habib and in particular Howard Cox have said that this was wrong, with the latter even saying that Robinson should not be in prison. And you think, well, this could become a big headache for Farage. Will it become a bigger headache than his support for Putin? Certainly could be, especially if Kemi Badenoch sees the opportunity here for an early win, because she has been presented with an opportunity on a plate. But first, for daily political commentary, please click the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So I discussed last week how Richard Tice, who replaced Ben Habib as deputy leader of the party after the election, he said that the party wants nothing to do with not just Tommy Robinson, but his supporters either. And his statement didn't even suggest he just meant those who go out and act unlawfully, you know, for example, with violence or threats of violence or urinating in the street. No, he seemed to be saying anyone who supports Robinson at all won't be acknowledged as allies by Reform UK. But now Ben Habib and Howard Cox, both prominent former candidates for Reform UK, have spoken out. Habib has made the point that these are Reform UK voters, and quite a few of them inevitably will be. I said last week, I think Tice is probably making the calculation that there are more votes to be gained distancing themselves from an absentee thug than lost by doing so. Habib is potentially like so many Tories in thinking you have to chase all of the potential votes and you can't afford to sacrifice any, even if it is impossible to appeal to one group without repelling the other. Howard Cox went further, however. Not only did he say that Robinson should not be in prison, which if he were a proper representative of the party could badly damage Reform's attempts to win over the more normal, typical voters. But he said that in a private call with Nigel Farage that the party leader had said Tice went over the top. Now, here's the thing. You may be thinking to yourself, as I initially did, for I thought it through, Ben Habib and Howard Cox, I mean, are they even really part of Reform UK? Because it's quite tricky to know. They have been representatives. Howard Cox stood for the Mayor of London contest Reform UK, as well as in the general election. Ben Habib has stood a couple of times as well for Westminster elections, and he was the deputy chair of the party. And you think, well, but because the party, even though they say they're going to move to a membership model, they don't actually have members at the moment. And they don't have very many what you would call executives. And so it's quite difficult to even know that Habib or Cox, do they have any role at all within Reform UK? So is it really causing a split within the party because these two guys said something? In itself, no. I would agree with that. However, what Cox in particular has said provides a very interesting line. For example, like if any journalists fancy probing this, very awkward for Farage. Because first of all, they could ask him if he'd told Howard Cox that Tice overstated the party's position. And then what association Farage wants with Robinson's supporters. Like Farage would on the face of it be forced to say either Cox was lying, in which case he also ties himself exactly to what Tice was saying, or that Tice is not reliably setting out the party's position, creating a bit of a schism there. Plus, I get the impression that, you know, it probably makes a lot of sense to get Richard Tice to do a lot of this sort of thing, so Farage can maintain a wider appeal by keeping his hands clean of those sort of statements. But this would force Farage to nail his colours to the mast. Does he support Tommy Robinson and what he does? Not his policies, what he does. Does he think it's right that Robinson is in prison or wrong? Which Tommy Robinson supporters does he want to associate with, if any? You know, all of them? Just the ones who don't break the law? None of them? You know, this has the power to be incredibly awkward for Farage. Like I say, if any journalists who fancy making a meal out of it the next time he talks to them. And the beauty of it is, it's not urgent. They don't have to do it next week or the week after. They could sit on the questions and wait half a year for an interview. In fact, maybe it could be more awkward if it's closer to Tommy Temnane's release date. I mean, like all populists, what Farage wants to do is to be all things to all people. He wants to tell the majority of potential Reform voters who do not approve of the rights, we know from polling, and do to an extent blame Tommy Robinson. He wants to tell them that he disowns that form of activism. But to the Robinson supporters, he wants to say, but I'm leading the only political party campaigning for exactly the same thing, so keep voting for us if you want to get what you want. But that sort of pragmatism is very hard for extremists to hang on to if Farage is forced. You know, a lot of the people who vote for Reform UK, as well as support Tommy Robinson, are essentially supporting a personality cult. So when you attack one of their high priests, they don't really like it. So a lot of people like that are not that pragmatic. So, you know, it's if Farage is forced in, you know, in strategic interest to more clearly disown Robinson personally and his support, you know, that even Tice was, and if he refuses, he makes Reform's position look very shady. You know, like they do support, like if he tries to be evasive, then to Robinson supporters, it looks like, oh, he's trying to disown us, he just hasn't got the balls to say it. And to normal voters, it's like, oh, yeah, he's not disowning Tommy Robinson's behaviour. Yeah, this isn't good. And Reform UK are going to need a plan for it. Because we don't know the future. I mean, maybe Harris will win next week. And never mind the Oompa Loompa of vengeance. Maybe Space Karen will find himself in financial and legal trouble. Maybe this has a material impact on how Twitter is run in the next couple of years, which has given Robinson a huge boost recently. Maybe Robinson himself will face serious charges relating to the riots and be behind bars for longer than he expects. We don't know. But the current trajectory is for Tommy Robinson to actually, over the next few years, become a more prominent feature of British politics. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, he, again, largely boosted by Twitter, has gained a lot of momentum. Going into prison does his cause no harm at all, because his cause is basically saying, you know, they're trying to keep us down. And of course, you know, if we do have a government that's not going to provide as much spicy news as well, he's going to provide it, right? So he's going to become probably more prominent. And because you cannot really squeeze a cigarette paper between the policies of Farage and Robinson, Reform UK are going to keep facing this conflict of interest. They want to win more seats at the next election. That means they have to stop focusing on national vote share and focus on vote share in target constituencies. Now, for that, they need to appeal to the people who believe the lies on immigration, but do not believe that violence is the way forward. But they'd also like to lose as few of those who do at least excuse the violence as well. In fact, it's not just the media who should be taking note of this angle. The Conservatives should. We know that Jenrick's plan to deal with Farage was to try to pretend to be a weaker version of him, but he lost. We don't really know Badenoch's plan for Reform UK. She's not really fleshed it out. It may well be that she thinks splitting their own vote is the way to go. You know, the Reform UK's vote, that is to say. If so, she could pose these questions herself. She could pose them in media articles. Oh, we seem to have this split. We're not quite clear where Reform UK. Here are my specific questions for Nigel Farage. Now, Farage doesn't have to answer them, but it could trigger journalists to ask Farage. You know, it could demand that journalists who interview Farage ask the same questions. Does Badenoch or her advisors have the wit to see the opportunity to go on the attack against Reform UK? And if she does, it would actually be quite hilarious. I mean, the Conservatives are split right now. There are those who think they should leave the ECHR and there are those who don't. There are those who think they should prioritise the votes lost to Reform UK on the far right. And there are those who think they should prioritise the votes lost to Labour and the Lib Dems, which cost them way more seats, around the centre. Guess which one I think's right. But at least they're split on actual differences. If this row over whether Reform UK welcome Tommy Robinson's supporters at least or not, if that splits the party, then Reform will be splitting over an agreement. They will be splitting over a movement that is campaigning for almost exactly the same things they are. If you know, I will just make mention as well, just sort of finally, because this could also be important. I'm going to make mention of a Twitter post that got around a bit. It suggested that 2 Reform UK MPs had tried to visit Robinson in prison. Now, if that turned out to be true, then yeah, that'd be very spicy, create a very chaotic situation for Reform UK, and Badenoch would be mad not to exploit it. However, as this statement came from a Tommy Robinson supporter whose own bio contradicts his own political beliefs, presumably without him even realising, and it's not mentioned in a single news article I'm going to guess it was just made up by Robinson's supporter who wants to make things awkward for Farage. But therein lies the opportunity for Badenoch as well, because she can run with it. She can ask Farage if this is true. It's, again, her own party wants to weaken Farage. And if there's a chunk of Robinson supporters who want to do likewise, then exploit the situation. I might even go as far as saying this could be an early test for Badenoch. Is she aware of this golden opportunity, this ammunition? Will she use it? Or will she fall back on Sunak's method of going, oh yeah, Nigel Farage is a top bloke and everything, wouldn't say a word against him, would love him in the party, but please vote for us, not him. Because Badenoch has an opportunity here, and an opportunity to score an early victory. She can get Farage on the back foot. This will be awkward for him. And that would get her detractors at least willing to give her a chance. But is she sharp enough to take it? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.